It's the 4th annual World Islamic Economic Forum, and among discussions on such topics as poverty reduction and increased economic integration, two phrases repeatedly stood out: subprime and its seemingly conjoined twin, credit crunch. And the suspicion of many delegates was that the West banks have yet to come clean as to how serious their problems really are.
I think the only way they could deal with this problem if they will tell us truly and honestly what is in their balance sheets. Do they have off-balance sheets? Are they having something, money not been shown?
Still, despite their concerns, the region's bankers appeared not unduly worried, in part because, according to a Standard & Poor's survey, they have an aggregate subprime exposure of less than 1% of their total assets.
It seems that the direct exposure for the region as a whole is quite small, quite limited. That there are a few banks that have sort of highlighted some exposure, but on the whole, the direct exposure has been very little.
From both in terms of the scale, the numbers being involved and the scale of involvement, at this stage it seems to be very modest, probably one of the most modest exposures that you'll see to the subprime crisis anywhere in the world.
That's not to say that the region's economies are trouble-free. Inflation is a problem, with most Gulf Cooperation Council governments admitting to near double-digit increases.
Well, undoubtedly inflation's picked up significantly, I think particularly in the last 6 months or so. I have to say that when I look at the speed of growth that's taking place in the Gulf right now, not only is inflation not a surprise, but really seeing an inflation rate of 8, 9, 10% doesn't trouble me greatly.
There's also another factor on display in Kuwait: the increasing ties between the GCC and Asia, a situation that might further help insulate the region's economies from any US slowdown. With the cost of oil at over $100 a barrel at the moment, these are good times for the economies of the GCC. During previous US economic slowdowns, however, demand and subsequently the price of oil fell. So can we expect that to happen this time? Or has the arrival of Asia as an economic powerhouse changed the equation?
I saw there was a recent decrease in oil demand in the US. It was announced by the EIA, I think 2 days ago. But that's been made up by China and India. So I think you have to look at the global picture. And the growth in Asia is making up for any potential on the other side.
The mood at the conference also hinted at more long-term changes to the underpinnings of the global economy.
I think you are going to see that whereas in the old days, as they used to say, if the United States sneezed, the world caught a cold, now the United States seem to have caught a cold. And the world is not even sneezing yet, if I may put it that way, especially our part of the world, China, India, Southeast Asia. We seem to be chugging along reasonably well under the circumstances.
Certainly the presence of high-powered Asian delegations, including the Malaysian Prime Minister Abdullah Ahmed Badawi, demonstrated the increasing ties between Asia and the GCC, with some estimates pointing to a 6-fold increase in trade to $300 billion by the year 2020. While Dubai's financial centre predicts some $250 billion of investments from the GCC into Asia over the next 5 years.
I think if you go around the GCC now, you'll see people talk about the new Silk Road. More investments from this part of the world into Asia, because remember, after 9/11, there's a huge amount of funds came back to GCC. Now they want to reinvest it, and then you've had since 2 or 3 fantastic stock markets, huge liquidity, and they think Asia is the place now to invest the money.
It was a sentiment echoed throughout the conference. Of course, the US credit crisis might still have some unforeseen effects on the economies of the GCC. But it's also possible that when future historians look back, they will determine it was during this era that the global balance of economic power shifted decidedly towards the Middle and Far East.